1460 WVOX.
Stay tuned now for the Racing for Heroes radio show with host Brett Morash on 1460 WVOX.
Hey, all right, Racing for Heroes fans, it's Brett Morash. It is April 22nd. We're here at WVOX, 1460 AM, worldwidevox.com, and we're on Facebook Live right now as well. We have a great Earth Day show coming up, and we're going to be talking about electric vehicles. I know everyone out there is normally listening to us talking about burning dinosaurs, but today we're talking about using the power of electricity to make vehicles go. So our first guest is no stranger to the show. It is Paul Malcomb, U.S. Army veteran, Avenger guy, and he's now turned into electric bike inventor and fabricator, and he's developing a series of motorbikes with RFHTM for quiet operation for hunters and other groups like that. Paul, are you on the line, brother?
I am indeed, Brett. It's great to be back on the show.
Well, listen, I before we get into electric bikes, because it is Earth Day, but I do want to talk about that. I know you're an Avenger guy, and for those of you who are listening and don't know what an Avenger, it's basically a Humvee with stingers on it. I just wanted to say that I was very excited to watch Russian helicopters getting blown out of the sky by Stinger missiles over the past couple of weeks.
Brett, we must be getting our wires crossed, brother. I was just a nobody. I was a combat engineer in the National Guard.
Oh, I thought
I don't know if it was misremember, but all good to correct it. But
I'm sorry.
Definitely happy to see it happening in Ukraine and see what's going on over there. Indeed.
Mea culpa, mea culpa. But you should have been excited because I'm sure they're using cratering charges and stuff, building trenches. So that
it is.
There you go. So that was the coolest thing I ever saw. There was a cratering charge go off. It was amazing for this Navy guy. But listen, let's talk about the bikes. So I know that you have a passion for this. I do want to also say that my kids were so excited to hear you were on the show and want to say thanks to your wife again for going on our off-road excursion. So
cheers.
They were beside themselves excited. But in fact, my daughter, we posted a picture of the bike on our Instagram. Julia sent to me, she's like, this is a joke? I'm like, no, it's Paul Malcomb. You met him. She's like, is that the one with the wife that was with us in the car? I'm like, yep, that's the one. So anyway, but let's get back to the show here. So tell us about the Evolution bikes.
Absolutely. Well, I guess, it's all following in the footsteps of our man, Elon Musk, I guess, with more madness, converting from internal combustion engines to electric motors. But I guess, events like the Lightning Laps at VIR on March 15th, where, the Plaid went 250, basically being a grocery-getting EV that ate everybody's lunch or dethroned all the cars in its class, even things like the BMW M4, GTR. So it's like starts with things like that just to show the instant torque, the lower center of gravity, the ability to pull out of corners. When we start converting that to what does that mean for motocross, I guess what we're really trying to focus on is exploring the limits of hair scramble style riding or endurance off-road. So this is more brutal. We're definitely worried about waterproofing and things like those issues that you'd run into where people have concerns related to electronics. So that'll be addressed. But I guess coming from, gas MX background, the difference is just unreal. You have instant torque right off the bat. So climbing a hill, it's unreal. The only analogy I can do is climb it like a billy goat. They weigh less, way more nimble. So from a transportability as well as like turning, it handles more like a mountain bike than it does a heavier dirt bike frame. Another part that's kind of proved to be pretty cool is how bad you can abuse them in the sense of you can lay them down and dump them on their side. And, a gasoline powered bike, you're worried about the oil running out the intake, etc., or messing stuff up. You want to pick it up right away. Whereas this thing, man, we can hang it upside down by the tires on the bottom of an airplane wing and fly it a couple hundred miles and still use the thing on the far end without a problem. So I guess it's pretty adaptable in that sense. And then I guess overall, you just talk about parts, an internal combustion engine. I have no idea what the average part count is, but the short version of this is when you convert to electric motor or electric propulsion in general, it's a whole lot less parts, almost no or very little maintenance aside from, tightening the chain and checking tire pressure type deal.
Sure.
And then I guess the biggest advantage that I've probably been dancing around is on the braking side with regenerative braking technology, both from like steep hill descents, which, to your conversation about taking my wife out on the trail, the truck's ability to control the descent of the truck was the thing that keeps you safe going down that crazy steep stuff.
Yep.
And so somewhat similarly, the bikes have this, inherently by design, just thanks to kind of like a J-brake type regenerative braking function. And then I guess the last big difference that's been really noticeable is the fact that they're near silent or a whole lot less invasive to, the surroundings or the environment that you're running them in. And I guess, obviously hunters, they can instantly see from a stalking perspective the benefit. But I think that the other big part of this that people may be overlooking is historically, we've only been able to take motocross, like sporting events to certain places because of sound ordinance. It has to be somewhere way out in the sticks in the middle of nowhere where they don't care about high revving sound, I guess, at odd hours, etc.
Yeah.
Whereas I guess with these things, man, you could have it right next to your neighbor's house 20 feet away and they wouldn't have a clue that it's happening right outside, unless somebody wrecked into the wall or something, I guess. But you get the point. So it's
amazing.
Really excited about where it's headed, or I guess the possibilities that are starting to unfold, as well as the range and the speed, because I guess before you'd look at it and think that a gas bike, you're going to have a top speed that's a whole lot higher or significantly higher, as well as how fast it's going to get there. And I don't think that that's the case anymore. I think that we're par for par, if not kind of switching that script back the other way.
Yeah, well, I mean,
but I guess.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Nope, fire away.
The last part, I guess, just how it's linked up with Racing for Heroes, I just wanted to kind of put a plug in and just say the coolest part of the work that we're doing right now is we're trying to provide more jobs for veterans that are in need. So it's something that's a key part of this as well. So it's hitting near home, so to say.
Oh, for sure. Well, as we briefed a couple of days back, Racing for Heroes did get a grant from Mitsubishi Electric America Foundation, which is part of their larger Mitsubishi Electric corporation here in the US. And, those folks, like that's the sort of stuff where like technology is clearly going that way. But let me talk about the bikes for a second, because I think that, there was a lot there. And I think it's important for
Take it apart.
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, one of the things that like, I think occurred to me and before you and I, we had our little pre-show brief, is the torque part. And, the way I describe it to people is like, if you've ever been using a drill, and like with a socket or something like on it, and you're drilling and it stops, and it wrenches your wrist, like that's torque, as opposed to like doing it with like an air gun where it's a little more gentlemanly, even when it's kind of getting to the end. So I think that's the sort of stuff where like people don't realize like that instant torque is there. And if anything, trying to control that torque from keeping the wheels spinning is probably the hard part.
Another part of that that's really neat about these is the nature of the controller, where you have programmable power profiles. So it's not to say that I'd be just as, actually, I'll say it, I'd be just as comfortable putting, elderly grandma on it, never ridden a two-wheel object before other than a bicycle, and talking her through very base controls and basically programming it or dumbing it down where it's something that can be done safely, all the way to somebody that's a motocross superstar that basically wants a full-blown blast raptor. Give me your worst. Here you go, go play.
Well, I think anytime you can make a technology, let's use a Marine Corps phrase, Barney simple, you're in good shape, right? And
Absolutely.
I think that, making things Barney simple really goes a long way, because you're right. I mean, this is where, anybody, regardless of skill level, as long as you know how to ride a bike and not fall off constantly, you're in good shape, right?
Talk about Barney simple. You go back to the less parts and less maintenance. I mean, I think back, I guess I wasn't really alive. It predates me, but I guess operators' manuals of cars from the 60s actually had pieces where they told people to adjust their valves and stuff like that. They showed how to do it. Can you imagine that being required now? Like, are you kidding me?
That's amazing.
Man, so the benefit of the bikes, I literally have a pouch that's maybe like 2 inches by 6 inches. It's a little thing that rides in on one of the bags on the bike, and it holds every type of Allen wrench we need to take this thing apart.
Yeah, well, it's almost at that level of like. So I for my boat, I have what's called a British Seagull engine, and they've got one tool that's like press stamped with all of the different size screwdrivers and headsets you need it. And
I love it.
And it's probably about the size of a dollar bill. And it's like a flat piece of steel, but like it comes with the engine, and it's like one of those things like you just make it so simple that it's just that easy to use. And that was like ultimate 1950s boat technology. You know, it's like Bugs Bunny engine where, you know, I literally have to wrap the rope around the top of it. But, you know, imagine now, like, you know, we have like a battery, and the only way to make that better is to have the battery hooked up to a solar panel to keep it charged up.
Yep. And actually, men talk about that. I guess spare batteries and the possibility of like a tow behind trailer with a solar rig or something. At least we've been talking about doing some type of endurance track, maybe down whatever it's called. I'm blanking right now. The trail that runs down the Rockies.
The rally. Yeah. I know. Yeah.
And we had also talked about going to Hatfield and McCoy's over in West Virginia. At least that would be another place
Rubicon
to go
Trail?
explore.
Is that the one? No, that's in California. So
I think it's Continental Divide is what I don't know if it has a different name, but it's running down the spine. But either way, something where you could do multi-day extended riding, because at this point, you know, from a cargo, let's run through some statistics. Cargo capability, you know, put 450, 500 pounds on the back of this. So it doesn't matter how big you are, as well as carrying, you know, stuff in saddlebags type deal. So you think about current endurance bikes. I mean, even the bigger GP off-road stuff, like I think about a BMW GP 1200 with saddlebags and the type of weight that they can carry. I think that we've already exceeded that point at this stage. And I guess, you know, range, I don't know where that compares. At least I haven't done enough really, really hard gas riding on the endurance side to get an idea of what you would get to a tanker range. So I don't know if another caller at some point has input on that, but I guess we can get 50 to 75 miles of the hardest, like whatever you throw at it, sand, mud, whatever. And I guess,
look, you're going to have to carry something, right? Because like you're either going to have to have liquid dinosaurs to refuel your motorbike or some sort of battery, right? But I mean, one of the things that like occurs to me is that, you know, like even with like solar panels, I mean, there are flexible solar panels now. So, you know, I see them in the marine field all the time where they're sewn into the bimini covers for like boats, right? To keep the batteries charged. I mean, there's no reason that like something like this couldn't have like, I guess where the fuel tank would be on a regular motorcycle, you know, a solar panel that's just constantly taken in charge, right? I mean, these are the sort of things that like just kind of occur to me is like, there's technologies out there and you just need someone with the brain power and sort of excitement to put those things together.
I'm going to take that as an idea, actually, Brett. So don't quote me on that.
You heard it.
Actually pretty good.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen.
Right. A passive solar, even if it was a really small cell in that area on the fuel tank where it could just do a trickle charge, that'd be really, that's message heard, sir. Message heard.
No, I mean, like these are the sort of things like that I think about. Like my kids wanted some backpack that like charges their phone. So I just like, this is the sort of stuff that I'm always impressed with. All right, so continue. Like let's talk about like applications. So hunters, of course, want it for like quiet operation, right?
Absolutely. So stalking, ironically enough, the first time my son and I were riding, so I guess our demonstrators bikes that we started with, at least conceptually seeing what was needed, were based off of the Segway XP60. And when we started riding these things around the yard, we would ride up on, a group of deer or turkey, etc. And it was something to the point that you get 20 feet away from them before they even realized, unless you broke a stick or like rode over some type of object that made noise. The approach is just, anyway, it's a different level. And I guess the other part of that is not just, I guess, whatever you're coming up on, it's also your situational awareness. Because think about how loud an internal combustion engine is when you're riding around on a bike and what you hear. I mean, somebody could be standing 50 feet away, not to say screaming at the top of their lungs, but yelling pretty loudly, and you probably wouldn't even know if you were going by on a bike. Whereas I guess these, not to say that we can be riding beside each other and talking at regular volume, but almost.
Absolutely. And obviously, I think that there are applications that anyone out there that needs a quiet, so let's say stealthy platform would be very interested in. But with Paul, with that, I got to let you go. Always excited to have you. Can you come another day? Because I think that there's a lot more to tease out of this, and at least want to brief on like where it stands in a little bit.
Look forward to it, Brett. Anytime. Take care,
Oh,
brother.
and listen, say thanks again to your wife. She's just awesome. And my kids are just think she's the best thing since sliced bread. So that's
Cheers.
amazing. All right. Thanks, brother. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Paul Malcomb, former U.S. Army engineer and now a veteran, turned electric bike inventor. With that, we have our next guest, a shipmate of mine, or we served out in JTF Hoa out in East Africa together for almost a year. Eric Smith, retired U.S. Navy commander, E2 Hawkeye, NFO, and just man about town, and now working with Ford Electric Vehicles. Eric, how are you doing, brother?
Doing wonderful. You know, when you only get a few hours of sleep, you got to launch into the day full force. A cup of coffee in one hand, cup of tea in the other.
Well, listen, you've got how many years of experience learning how to live that lifestyle between being, I know that it was sort of the dark side of the force, but you started off as a surface warfare officer like myself, and then made the leap over to the aviation world.
As I've told people, at least I'm not in a foxhole with other concerns running around me. And 4 square meals a day in a hot rack is not a bad thing for life.
Exactly true. In fact, I don't know if you saw I know that you're a Hawkeye, and for those folks who don't know what that is, it's a airborne observation plane. It's got a big radome on the top. Provides sort of like the all-looking eyeball for the fleet at altitude. But I don't know if you saw they were talking about like it looks like maybe the U.S. Navy provided some maritime domain awareness for the Russian ship Moskva getting shot last week.
Yeah, it was nice to see that. You know, when you look at the Russian Navy and you say, hey, look, they have a new submarine ship in their fleet, or they finally put the fire out. You know, all the memes are appropriate, but it's a wonderful reminder of the U.S. Navy and how much we don't give up the ship.
I hear you, man. Well, I was telling Dennis Nardone, the morning host out in the parking lot here, is that like when you go to a U.S. Navy ship, they're designed to get hit. And because you can see all the pipes, you can see all the electronics, every sailor on there from the captain down to the most junior seaman recruit, they've all been trained in damage control. And like the mindset is we're not going to let the ship sink. But if you look at European navies and Russian Navy ships, in World War II, their ships went to the bottom because they didn't necessarily have that same way of doing business. So anyway, just, thank you for that, Eric. And, I know you've lived it too.
I miss the sunrises on the ship at sea. That was always wonderful and beautiful. But no, I like going out and do my training and coming back home and going to the bar.
I hear you, brother.
As opposed to being on a ship for a week at a time.
You bet. All right, but Eric, let's talk about your other passion besides the U.S. Navy, electric vehicles. You're currently working with Ford.
Yep, Ford Pro Charging, the commercial arm.
Yes.
So
what
we've
is
got
that?
a number of opportunities at scale. It's how Ford rebranded their opportunities from a financing to vehicle servicing to assignments to telematics. They brought it all together under one umbrella in order to serve the customer. And then we are Ford Pro Charging, so the electric vehicle transition arm. We come in with a end-to-end solution, whether it's infrastructure, home charging, et cetera, but we are primarily focused on commercial customer. And our 2 mantras is, we need your vehicle charged and ready to do your business at hand. And we're always on customer service.
So you're talking about like if like Hertz rental car wanted a fleet of electric vehicles, right?
Yep, that's one of them. Also think Joe's Plumber, he's got a number of e-transit vans, or he's got transit ICE vehicles. He's looking to transition, a lot of transits there, from an ICE vehicle to a BEV, and so a battery electric vehicle. So he would want to look at the e-transit, and we've got the wheelbase, we've got the roof height, but all of them do about 124 miles. And so our system comes in and looks at how he uses his vehicle and how to best set up a charging infrastructure either at his depot or help him use the public network that is available for all your normal consumers.
Well, that's amazing. Like, helping small businesses map that out. I mean, what an incredible way to do business. Well,
and it really spoke to me coming into this role because much like you and I have experienced on the veteran side of things, is helping the customer on that journey and kind of holding their hand through the process is the educational lift that very few salespeople do.
Sure.
They usually want to pitch their product and move on to the next client. They're not interested in developing and keeping that relationship going forward.
Yeah, well, and I, that's testament to you, Eric. I mean, is that long view is that, these are partners, and, making sure that, they understand like what you bring to the table, and what this technology brings to the table. Because listen, 10 years ago, I don't think anyone was thinking like this.
No, and even when you and I talked when I was first getting out of the Navy, hypothetically, we talked about NASCAR going to electric vehicles.
Yeah.
When it would happen. Hey, we've already started seeing pace cars. In fact, the Lightning either just did or will do in this season perform as a pace car at one of the NASCAR events.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, and even the Ford pony car Mustang is now an electric vehicle. I mean, who would have thought?
Hey, careful! You've got some traditional listeners on this program.
It's
I
Earth
would
Day.
not put Mustang and Mach-E in the same sentence, even though that's the technical title of the vehicle.
I know. But it is Earth Day. We're giving them a break. We're going to go back to burning dinosaurs tomorrow. So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, because that's what Race Appears usually does. But no, listen, I think it's exciting. And, but when I think of this, like it's like you were saying, like the implications of that, because, I think you've seen Formula E out there, and, they're in the process right now of switching vehicles because technology is moving so quickly that the current vehicle, which only came online, I think 3 years ago, is already obsolete.
Yep. 2019, they started it switching from a Formula One to Formula E.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, just a couple of days ago, there was an article written with a great quote. If you look at some of the original marketing effort behind the Formula E development, there was a statement that Formula One is loved for its jeopardy. The breathtaking speed, tight chicanes, and male ego combined to create the potential for an unexpected calamity.
Yeah.
But it's not just the visual spectacle that captivates them. It's the noise and the smell, equally important, combining for a holistic assault on the senses. And that right there captures the embodiment of Formula One.
Yeah.
And it's completely lost with Formula E. It's quiet. It's quick. You still have a lot of opportunities fraught with endangerment, but you've got reliability and consistency. I mean, you've got motor speeds that have 100% torque coming around 180-degree turn. The laws of friction and physics are not going to sway or give when you have a large vehicle coming in to a tight turn that fast.
Well, I think that, you heard Paul talking about earlier, is that like the technology is trying to catch up, right? Because you're right. Like if they have that much torque, how do they even control that, getting that torque to the pavement, via the tire?
It's impressive because, what you don't know is I was actually solicited by a longtime Atlanta resident who was involved in Formula One. Not obviously near the beginning. He's not that old, I don't think. But he wanted to bring a Formula E to Atlanta and be the first American race circuit before New York, before Tennessee, before LA. And we had a lot of conversations about confidentiality agreements and who would take part in the marketing and the operations. And I thought it was going to go somewhere. It never culminated in that. And lo and behold, Atlanta never ended up on the final race list. But it gave me a lot of opportunities for insight to not only technology in the background, but things that you see in the consumer level, like torque vectoring and slip control. All that happens on a consumer vehicle, seamlessly, is a key part of the engineering and operational design of a Formula E vehicle.
Yeah. Well, listen, it's just impressive. I mean, I think that, I think in a lot of ways, while people might think that it's a mature industry, it absolutely is not. And I think it's, it's waiting to be seen because, well, and first of all, Eric, I would like to say that if they did hire you, they would have had Formula E in Atlanta. I am convinced, because it would have been you driving it. However, having said that, like, I think that there's so much more coming up on the horizon.
Well, and they've just gone to a Gen 3 motor and battery set. It hasn't even been released yet. That's coming out publicly next Thursday in Monaco. Yeah. And then shortly after that, it'll be distributed to all the race teams. So they haven't even had a chance to look at the technological improvements to understand where the flexibility is in the individual tailored car.
Vehicle, yeah. No, and I think that's one thing about, Formula racing anyway, is that, there's sort of a spec piece of that matters, but like, you're right, like it's that tailoring part, and they're not going to have a lot of time because next season it's this third gen system already.
Well, and the other thing that really kind of brought it home for me was I lost sight of the fact that a lot of R&D effort actually ends up making that into consumer technology.
Yep.
So the better they do on the race circuit, then the better you and I benefit when we go to the local dealership and buy our new car.
Yeah, and I think that that's why, you're going to see, places like Ford and, the other major automotive manufacturers, Toyota, whatever, all of those new technologies are going to start trickling into their vehicles. And, I think we'll start to see even hardcore traditionalists say, yeah, maybe my next car or maybe one of my next cars is an electric vehicle.
A little known fact, Jim Farley races on the weekend and takes that insight and unique ability into the boardroom when he has those conversations.
Yeah. Amazing. I just amazing. I can't say enough. And Eric, listen, we're going to the last 30 seconds of the show. Any little plugs for Ford EV? Where can they look about things?
Since I married Robin, she brought me into the used vehicle market, but it's amazing to watch what the new car industry is going through with supply chain challenges. Really getting your hands on an electric vehicle is going to be hard and difficult. Yeah. But for everyone listening who hasn't driven an electric vehicle, just go drive one. Before you pass judgment or make an opinion, drive an electric vehicle.
Amazing.
And then decide.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that, Eric. And listen, I'm so sorry to cut you short. We'll have you on again. You're great. And thanks for being a great shipmate. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is the end of our show. We will be back next week right here on WVOX 1460 AM. Thanks so much.